I'm Ann Carter, 29, a finance consultant who thought I'd mapped out my life with the precision of a ledger until my mother, Susan, threw scalding coffee in my face at my sister Lily's engagement party for refusing to fork over $40,000. The burn stung, but they were nothing compared to the raw ache of betrayal that followed. My name's not on billboards, but I've built a life I'm proud of in Portland, Maine, with Derek, my fiancé, a tech innovator who sees the world the way I do, through hard work and quiet purpose. That day, though, my carefully balanced world tilted, and what unfolded changed how I saw family, love, and myself. Growing up in Blue Harbor, a small fishing town on Maine's jagged coast, wasn't the idyllic postcard it might sound like. Our house, a weathered Cape Cod with peeling gray paint, sat a block from the docks, where the air always smelled of salt and diesel. My father, Henry, a lobsterman, spent his days hauling traps, promising to fix the sagging porch, but never finding the time. He was a man of soft words and softer resolve, always yielding to my mother, Susan, who ruled our home like a queen presiding over a court she felt was beneath her. Susan had been a beauty pageant star in her youth, her smile dazzling enough to win crowns, but not enough to escape the poverty of her childhood in a millworker's family. That hunger for status clung to her like damp fog, and she poured it into curating a perfect image, pressed dresses, a gleaming smile, and a knack for making neighbors envy our modest life. But beneath the polish, she was a storm, controlling every detail of our world. I inherited her sharp jawline and sharper mind, always calculating, always planning. My sister, Lily, 3 years younger, got our father's soft hazel eyes and a charm that made people forgive her anything. From the moment she was born, Lily was Susan's sun, while I was the shadow expected to shine on command. And why can't you be more like Lily? Susan would sigh when I brought home straight A's, as if my debate team medals were a personal affront. Lily, with her C's and packed social calendar, was the cheerleader Susan drove to every practice, while my late-night study sessions earned me lectures about being too serious. I learned early that love in our house came with strings, and for me, those strings were always just out of reach. By high school, I stopped chasing Susan's approval and started plotting my escape. College was my lifeline, but when I earned a partial scholarship to Bowdoin, Susan clutched my acceptance letter like it was a bill she couldn't pay. "We've been saving for Lily's future," she snapped, as if my ambition was a betrayal. That was the first time I saw the ledger of her love, Lily's column overflowing, mine barely touched. I put myself through Bowdoin with scholarships, loans, and shifts at a local diner, pouring coffee for fishermen who tipped in quarters and stories. My grandmother, Margaret, a retired schoolteacher with a spine of steel, was my anchor. She'd worked in an era when women were expected to stay home, and she saw the same fire in me. "Don't let them dim you," and she'd say during our Sunday calls, her voice crackling over the line. When she passed during my senior year, her death cracked something in me, but her letter, tucked with a $75,000 inheritance, mended it just enough. "For your future, whatever you choose," she wrote, "your dreams are worth it." I never told my family about the money. It was my secret, a lifeboat I kept hidden in case the storms at home grew too fierce. That inheritance became my foundation, not for flashy cars or designer bags, but for strategic moves. After Bowdoin, I landed an entry-level job at Coastal Capital, a Portland firm managing portfolios for Maine's wealthy. While Lily dropped out of community college to find herself, I negotiated a starting salary above the norm, mapped a 5-year career plan, and worked nights mentoring young women in finance. Susan's reaction was a shrug, stable benefits, I suppose, but I wasn't chasing her praise anymore. By 27, I'd become a partner, my office overlooking Casco Bay, where sailboats bobbed like reminders of the freedom I'd earned. It was at a fundraiser for financial literacy that I met Derek Sullivan. He wasn't like the trust fund types who flaunted their wealth with loud suits and louder laughs. Derek, with his dark curls and steady brown eyes, asked questions about the program's impact, not its tax breaks. He'd grown up in a Boston triple-decker, his parents scraping by, and built a cybersecurity startup from his dorm room, selling it for millions before starting a new venture in renewable energy. Over glasses of cheap wine, we bonded over our distrust of extravagance and our belief that money should build, not flaunt. 2 years later, he proposed on a foggy hike along the Bold Coast, kneeling in the mud with a simple sapphire ring. "No grand gestures," he said, grinning. "Just us." I said yes before he finished asking. Our wedding plans were modest: a historic lighthouse in Acadia National Park, 50 guests, a $40,000 budget covering everything from travel to the lobster bake reception. It wasn't lavish, but it was ours, woven with meaning. "We could elope and donate the money," Derek teased one night, his arm around me as we pored over seating charts. I laughed, but the thought lingered. Susan's response to our engagement was predictably tepid. "Well, at least you're settling down," she said, eyeing my ring like it was a clearance rack find. Henry mumbled congratulations, while Lily texted about planning my bachelorette party, already assuming she'd be in it. As my career climbed, so did Susan's expectations. It started small, covering Lily's phone bill when she was between jobs. Then it grew, co-signing her car loan, paying for her new wardrobe. "She's your sister," Susan would say, as if love meant opening my wallet. I loved Lily, but resentment simmered. Why was I her safety net when she made no effort to stand on her own? Derek noticed my tension after Susan's calls, his hands kneading my shoulders. "You're not their ATM," he'd say gently. "My therapist, Dr. Orla Hayes, echoed him, saying no doesn't make you selfish and it makes you whole." But the guilt Susan had sown into me since childhood tugged hard, whispering I owed them for the roof over my head, the meals on my plate. Claire, my best friend since we were kids sneaking clams from the harbor, was blunter. "Your mom's using you to prop up Lily's dreams," she said over coffee at her bakery. "It's not love, it's a transaction." The pressure peaked when Lily announced her engagement to Nate, a musician she'd met 6 months earlier at a Portland open mic. Susan gushed about his artistic soul and old money family, conveniently ignoring his lack of a job and his reliance on a dwindling trust fund. They planned a June wedding at Cliffside Manor, a venue so exclusive it hosted senators' daughters. "Nothing but the best for Lily," Susan declared over the phone, her voice syrupy with pride. I did the math in my head, tens of thousands for the venue alone, not counting the designer dress or Maldives honeymoon Lily was already posting about on Instagram. Susan's calls grew relentless, always circling back to money. "Lily's found her soulmate," she'd hint. Wouldn't it be nice to help them start their life? I'd remind her I was planning my own wedding, buying a house with Derek, but she'd counter with, "Family helps family," and the guilt nod, but Orla's words anchored me. "You're not responsible for their choices." Claire was less diplomatic, stabbing her fork into a scone as we met at her bakery. "They're setting you up, and this engagement party is a trap to guilt you into paying for Lily's fantasy wedding. Take Derek for backup." I waved her off. Derek had a critical investor meeting that weekend, but her words stuck. "Promise you'll leave if it gets toxic," she insisted. I nodded, though my stomach churned at the thought of facing Susan alone. Nightmares haunted me in the weeks before the party, our old house closing in, Susan's voice booming until I woke gasping. I was 29, a partner at a top firm, engaged to a man I loved, yet I felt like that teenager again, scrambling for scraps of approval. Derek kissed me goodbye the morning I left for Blue Harbor, his eyes worried. "Call if you need me," he said. "I'll be there in 2 hours if my meeting wraps early." I forced a smile. "It's just a weekend. I've got this." But as I drove toward my parents' house, the familiar clapboard homes and lobster traps lining the road stirred a mix of nostalgia and dread. Pulling into my parents' driveway, I noticed the house looked different: new shingles, a gleaming deck, stainless steel appliances glinting through the kitchen window. Henry's lobstering barely covered the bills, and Susan hadn't worked in years. Where was the money coming from? Henry greeted me with a clumsy hug, taking my bag. "Good to see you, kid," he said, his voice warm but tired. "Susan's been cooking all day." The house smelled of lemon polish and roasted garlic, but the upgrade screamed of Susan's need to impress. Lily bounded down the stairs, her blonde curls bouncing, her perfume expensive. "And you're here," she squealed, hugging me tightly. Her enthusiasm felt real, but it didn't erase years of uneven scales. "Wait till you meet Nate, he's incredible." Nate, predictably, was absent, off, networking with music producers, Lily said, unbothered. Dinner was a tightrope walk. Susan grilled me about my wedding plans, her smile sharp as she praised Lily's dream venue. Henry stayed quiet, picking at his lobster roll, his silence a familiar retreat. While clearing plates, I overheard Susan and Lily in the pantry, their voices low but urgent. "You said they'd help with the costs," Lily whined. "They will," Susan soothed. "Nate's parents are just having a cash flow issue. We've got options." The word options landed like a stone in my gut, confirming Claire's warning. Later, as aunts and cousins arrived, my mother's sister, Aunt Ellen, cornered me with a smirk. "Still crunching numbers, Anne? No time for a family of your own." I forced a smile until my cousin Sarah pulled me aside, whispering, "Ignore Mom. We're proud of you." I escaped to the guest room, my phone buzzing with a text from Derek. "Meeting's running late. Might not make it till morning." "You okay?" I replied, holding up. "Miss you." His response was quick, knight in shining armor, reporting for duty tomorrow. "Love you." I sank onto the bed, the weight of the weekend pressing down, knowing tomorrow's party would test every boundary I'd tried to set. Saturday morning was a whirlwind. Caterers swarmed the backyard, stringing fairy lights and arranging peonies. Susan orchestrated it all like a conductor, while Lily posed for selfies in a silk dress that screamed money. I helped set up gift tables, my navy dress modest but sharp, my gift, a crystal vase set carefully chosen to stay within Derek's and my $200 budget. Nate arrived at noon, all charm and teeth, his hug too tight, his eyes lingering on my watch. "The famous sister," he said, his tone oily. His friends, in designer sneakers and vague jobs, made jokes about marrying up that curdled my stomach. As guests arrived, Susan handed me a wine glass, adjusting my necklace with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Everything must be perfect," she said, then lowered her voice. "Nate's parents are particular, but they're having some financial hiccups. His trust funds stretched thin." I nodded, dodging the bait, and changed the subject to the party schedule. By 3 p.m., the backyard was a vision, white roses, clinking glasses, a violin quartet. My anxiety spiked as Derek texted he was stuck in traffic. In the bathroom, I splashed cold water on my face, whispering to my reflection, "You're enough. You can do this." Lily and Nate made their grand entrance, her blush gown shimmering, his suit tailored to perfection. "We have exciting news," Lily announced, detailing a Cliffside Manor wedding, a 6-tier cake from a Boston patisserie, a gown from Paris, a Fiji honeymoon. Each word tightened my chest. This wasn't a plan. It was a fiscal freefall. "We're so grateful for our family support," Lily said, her eyes flicking to me. Susan raised a glass, to Lily and Nate and those who love them enough to make their dreams real. The pointed toast felt like a hook. Susan cornered me by the dessert table. "And a private word?" Against my instincts, I followed her to Henry's study, where she shut the door. "Isn't this magical?" she said, gesturing to the party. Lily's found her match. Her tone shifted. "Nate's family has hit a rough patch, temporary of course. Lily deserves her dream wedding." I braced myself. "How much?" I asked flatly. "Just $40,000, she said, as if it were pocket change. "You and Derek can afford it. Your little lighthouse thing can wait." "No," I said, my voice steady. "I'm not funding a wedding Lily can't afford. It's reckless, and it's not my job." Susan's face hardened. "After all we've done for you? You're selfish, Anne." "I paid my own way through college," I shot back. "I've been independent since I was 18. You don't get to guilt me for that." Her voice rose as she followed me into the hall, where guests lingered. "Everyone," she called, "and has something to share." The crowd hushed. "She's refusing to help Lily's wedding because she's too busy counting her money." Lily's face fell. "And is that true?" I'm not discussing this here, I said, my heart pounding. Susan's rage boiled over. She grabbed a coffee cup from a passing tray and flung it at me. The hot liquid seared my cheeks, soaking my dress. I gasped, the pain sharp, the humiliation sharper. Look what you made me do. Susan shrieked. You've ruined everything. Lily clutched her mouth, Nate's eyes widened, and guests froze, their whispers a dull roar in my ears. Through the blur of tears and burning skin, I heard the front door open. Derek strode in, his face shifting from confusion to fury as he took in my dripping dress, my red cheeks, Susan's defiant stance. He rushed to me, his hands gentle on my shoulders. And what happened? Are you okay? Susan stepped forward, her voice syrupy. Derek, just a little family spat. Anne was being stubborn about Lily's wedding and I overreacted. Overreacted? Derek's voice was steel. You threw hot coffee at your daughter because she wouldn't give you $40,000? Susan stammered. It was an accident, in the heat of the moment. Derek helped me stand, his arm a shield. She needs a doctor. Those burns need treatment. Susan scoffed. It wasn't that hot. Derek's calm cracked. Mrs. Carter, I've heard about your family for 2 years, how Anne funded her own education while you saved for Lily, how you belittle her success while praising Lily's every step. He turned to the crowd. Did you know Anne's been paying your mortgage for 3 years? Anonymously, through a trust, so you wouldn't lose this house when Henry's boat broke down. Susan paled. Henry stepped forward, his voice shaky. And is this true? I nodded, my secret spilling out. I didn't want you to worry. Derek wasn't done. And Lily, your student loans, $25,000, paid off by Anne. She let you think it was a grant so you wouldn't feel indebted. Lily's jaw dropped. That was you. Nate edged closer, his eyes gleaming. Madison never mentioned her sister was so accomplished. His tone made my skin crawl. Derek continued, Anne's a partner at Coastal Capital, one of Portland's top firms. She turned her grandmother's inheritance into millions, not for show, but for programs mentoring kids in poverty. She's not your ATM, she's your daughter, your sister. Susan sputtered. She lives so modestly, that condo, that car, because she values money's purpose, not its status, Derek said. I met Lily's eyes. Would knowing I had money have changed how you saw me? I asked. I wanted love, not obligation. Susan tried to recover. If we'd known, we wouldn't have asked for help. A misunderstanding. But the room's silence spoke louder, her words rang hollow, and for the first time, I felt seen. Derek guided me to the car, my face throbbing, my dress ruined. At the ER, the doctor confirmed first-degree burns, painful but not scarring. My phone buzzed with messages. Lily's, I'm so sorry, call me. Henry's, your mother's upset. Please call. Susan's, this was a misunderstanding. Even Aunt Ellen texted, suddenly eager to discuss investments. I turned off my phone, leaning into Derek. I can't face them yet, I said. You don't have to, he replied, his hand steady in mine. We stayed at a Bar Harbor hotel, Derek ordering room service, running a cool bath to soothe my burns. I'm sorry I spilled your secrets, he said later, his voice soft. Seeing you hurt, I couldn't stay quiet. I squeezed his hand. It's okay. Hiding my success was exhausting. Maybe it needed to come out. The next day, I called Orla for an emergency session. What Susan did was assault, she said plainly. There's no excuse, no matter how heated things got. I nodded, still reeling. She's never been physical before. Maybe not, Orla said, but the emotional manipulation? This was just louder. She helped me draft a plan. No contact with Susan until she acknowledged her actions. Cautious openness with Lily and Henry if they respected my boundaries. Claire, when I called, was livid. Coffee in your face? That's not a spat, and that's abuse. Stay away from her. Over the next week, Lily showed up at my office tearful. Why didn't you tell me you were so successful? She demanded. I struggled, and you were rich? I stayed calm. I live within my means, Lily. That's not wealth, it's choice. Her voice broke. Mom says it was an accident. I held her gaze. Do you believe that? She looked away, ashamed. It's a mess. Nate's acting strange, his parents are backing out, and Mom's either crying or yelling. Henry called next, his voice heavy. Susan went too far. I should have stopped her. Finding out you paid our mortgage, it's humbling and I failed you. His apology, small as it was, cracked open something new, a father I might finally know. The extended family split. Ellen chased my wallet, Sarah offered real support. Work kept me grounded, but Susan's next move, showing up at my office, escorted out by security, showed she hadn't changed. Her flowers, with a card reading, "Families fight, we forgive," felt like another manipulation. 6 months passed, a blur of work and healing. Lily broke off her engagement with Nate, his interest in my money too blatant to ignore. She moved into a small apartment, took a job at a Camden event planner, and started dreaming of her own business. Our lunches, tentative at first, grew warmer. "I'm sorry I didn't see how Mom treated you," she said one day, stirring her coffee. I was so caught up in being her favorite. I nodded. We were both shaped by her, just differently. When she shared her business plan, asking for advice, not money, I saw a new Lily, someone choosing her own path. Henry and I started weekly lunches, too. He opened up about his regrets, how he'd let Susan's need for control drown his voice. "I thought peace was worth the cost," he said, staring at his chowder. "But it cost you, Anne. I'm sorry." His decision to attend my wedding without Susan was a quiet rebellion, a step toward his own freedom. Susan, meanwhile, started therapy, according to Lily, but her refusal to own the coffee incident kept her at a distance. Her social media posts, vague laments about family misunderstandings, felt like more performances, not progress. Derek's family became my refuge. His mother, Diane, called weekly, never asking for anything but my well-being. His father, Tom, offered legal advice about restraining orders, just in case. Their warmth highlighted what I'd missed, a family that didn't measure love by what I could give. Orla's sessions kept me steady, helping me untangle why I'd hidden my success, why I'd felt guilty for it. "You're breaking patterns," she said. "That's not failure, it's courage." Slowly, I began to imagine a life where my worth wasn't tied to utility, where boundaries weren't betrayal. The morning of my wedding, I stood before a cracked mirror in the lighthouse keeper's cottage, adjusting my lace veil. Outside, Acadia's cliffs met the Atlantic, waves crashing under a cloudless sky. Claire, my maid of honor, smoothed my dress, her eyes bright. "You're stunning," she said. I smiled, nerves fluttering. Is it weird I'm nervous about Henry walking me down the aisle? We've only just started talking, really talking. Claire shook her head. "You're building something new. That's worth the jitters." Lily knocked, stepping in with a sage green dress that matched her eyes. "I have something," she said, offering a small box. Inside was Margaret's pearl bracelet, its luster soft as memory. "Mom doesn't know I took it," she admitted. "But Grandma would have wanted this." Tears pricked my eyes as I slipped it on. "Thank you, Lily." She hesitated, then added, "I got approved for a business loan. I'm starting a bakery. No family money, just me, with a little advice from a certain finance guru." She nudged me, grinning. "That's amazing," I said, hugging her. For the first time, I saw my sister, not Susan's shadow. Henry appeared, his suit slightly rumpled, his smile shy. "Ready, kid?" As he led me to the lighthouse, where 50 guests waited, he murmured, "Susan's missing a beautiful day." "Her choice," I replied, squeezing his arm. The ceremony was everything Derek and I dreamed, simple, heartfelt, the ocean our witness. I looked at the faces, Derek's parents, Claire, Lily, Henry, friends who'd become family, and felt the weight of who wasn't there. Susan's absence stung, but it was a choice I'd made for my peace. At the reception, under a tent strung with lanterns, Lily laughed with Derek's cousin, Ethan, their ease a small spark of hope. Henry's toast was quiet, but raw, acknowledging our journey without lingering on pain. As Derek and I danced, the lighthouse beam sweeping over us, he whispered, "Happy?" "More," I said, meaning it. This day wasn't just a wedding, it was a declaration of the life I'd chosen, free from obligations' chains. Later, as guests thinned, I found Lily on the lighthouse steps, ocean breeze tangling her hair. "Mind if I join you?" I asked, gathering my dress. She scooted over. It's your day, you get to call the shots. We sat, the moon silvering the waves, and she spoke first. I've been thinking about money, not yours, she added quickly, but how it warped us. Mom's obsession with status made me entitled, you secretive. Neither was right. I nodded. We're unlearning it, though. She pulled a folded paper from her clutch, her bakery budget. Will you look this over? Not for money, just advice. I took it, my throat tight. Lunch next week. Her smile was enough. The coffee incident, brutal as it was, had cracked our family open, forcing truths into the light. Susan's rage, Lily's dependence, Henry's silence. They'd shaped me, but they didn't define me. I'd built a life with Derek, with boundaries that protected my heart, with relationships, Lily, Henry, Claire, that grew from respect, not utility. Susan was trying, Lily said, but her journey wasn't mine to fix. Some bonds might never heal, and that was okay. Freedom came from letting go. As Derek and I left amid sparklers, I carried more than wedding joy. I carried peace in knowing my worth wasn't tied to what I could give, but who I was. The true wealth in my life wasn't my portfolio or my title. It was the love I'd chosen, the boundaries I'd set, the future Derek and I would build on our terms. To everyone who's followed this journey, thank you. You've walked with me through pain, confrontation, and hard-won peace. If my story stirred something in you, share your own in the comments below. Have you set tough boundaries with family? Has a rupture led to healing? Hit that like button, subscribe, and join us where every story carves a path to truth. Keep choosing your own peace, and I'll meet you in the light.